There are functional and dysfunctional behaviors that can be significant, really significant blocks or obstacles on the road to addressing conflict. This segment is all about what gets in the way. We're going to look at 4 behaviors that are problematic when there are disagreements, whether they are big disagreements or whether they're little disagreements. These are behaviors that can really get in the way. Now, these blocks can pop up when the conflict is of a very personal nature, of a highly emotional nature, but they can also appear when we're drained or exhausted. They can surface when we feel like we're threatened or we're vulnerable. Whatever the reason, pay attention to your own behavioral obstacles, because it's not always the other person. The first behavioral block is rigid behavior. How do you know if this is your block or your pattern? If you get so committed to your own views that you don't know when or how to cooperate and to collaborate, or just to give in sometime, this could be your pattern. Another indicator of rigidity is being intractable. It is when we have stated an opinion, we've stated it openly, and we will not ever consider changing our minds. You won't change your mind even when people are able to show you the errors in your thinking or in your position. Now, other indicators of rigid behavior include this unwillingness to draw out the opinions, the insights, the experiences, the perspectives, the knowledge of other people. Ultimately, the real indicator of rigid behavior is an inability or an absolute unwillingness to admit when you're wrong. That's an ingredient in the recipe for ongoing conflict. Yeah, that's a big ingredient in the recipe. Up next, indecisive behavior. These are the people who are often deemed cowardly. We call them wishy-washy. We call them weak. We say they're lacking commitment. These are the people who will not, absolutely not, put their position on the table. Or if they do, they waffle on their position. They will not raise their issues at meetings, or if they do, if they raise them, it's with a lot of, well, uncertainty, that kind of ambiguity, and they're just not sure of themselves. So what happens when indecisive people get in the way? That's when they're opposing consensus, but they're doing it just below the radar. They don't call us on premature consensus or false consensus. And their inability to make a decision or to take a stand really begins to frustrate others. And it can perpetuate even more conflict because they're not really in the game. Let's move to intrusive behavior. These are the people that really, really get on my nerves. These are the take charge, take over people. These are the people who stick their nose in everybody else's business. These are just busybodies. They take charge even when it's really not their responsibility. These are the people who take charge even when they're not directly involved. They don't mind trampling on others. They're overly involved because I think they want to protect their own interests, or I think they get overly involved because, they don't understand. They really don't understand boundaries. They don't get that. These are people who stay involved in conflicts and they exclude others. Their involvement really can be rooted in self-interest, self-preservation, self-service, or just a big old ego. And sometimes they are really delusional and they truly believe that by intruding, they can fix problems that aren't their problems. Sometimes, as I said before, their egos lead them to butt in. Their egos tell them that the best way to get things done is for them to do it themselves, and they need to step in. Well, we know that that means that the ego has run away with them, but they don't know that. So they continue to be very, very intrusive. Fourth, finally, aloof behavior. These are the people who kind of manage to stay out of the fray because of any number of reasons. They may avoid confrontation, especially confrontations that are emotionally charged. They may avoid them. They may seem disinterested, and sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not. They don't appear to be really deeply invested, and they keep their thoughts to themselves. They hold everything close to the vest. Aloof behavior is indicated by not sharing your thoughts and not sharing your feelings. Now, it may be out of fear, or it may also go back to the trust issues. Aloof behavior, it really doesn't move us any closer to conflict resolution. Neither do the other behaviors that I have reviewed here. So as we wrap up, I really want you to remember that each of the blocks that I've mentioned, the rigid behavior, the indecisive behavior, the intrusive behavior, and the aloof behavior, each of them can be very powerful obstacles. As powerful as they are, they can also be overcome. They can be overcome with focused attention. So I invite you to really focus your attention on ways to overcome each of these behavioral blocks. And one of the ways to do it is to examine your level of trust. Do you trust yourself? Do you have faith that your perspectives are worthy of consideration? Do you trust others? Do you believe that there are other approaches? And do you believe that there are other perspectives that are worth considering? Those are really difficult questions. They're really tough questions, but they're necessary. They're necessary if you want to develop sound, strong conflict management skills. Those questions are questions that you simply have to consider. And I am not saying that overcoming these obstacles or these behaviors is easy. Quite the contrary. These blocks are usually rooted deeply in our social conditioning. Some of us have been taught that tactful is better than truthful. And that assumes that tact and truth are mutually exclusive, and they're not. Some of us grew up in environments where arguments and just negative energy, where conflict was really poorly managed, and that's damaged us. That's really damaged us. Others of us have been raised to just be silent and swallow our feelings. Think through your earliest messages about how to handle conflict, how to manage differences, because it's those messages that can and do surface throughout our adult lives. You know, you've got power. You've got the power to remove any of the blocks, any of these obstacles from your toolbox, and you can replace them with better tools, with something that's more productive for managing or resolving conflict. I'd like to encourage you to develop new skills so that you can really create the conflict identity that you want. I'd like for you to develop the skills to be a bridge builder. So examine your behaviors so that you can be the person who facilitates and creates possibilities for resolution.